surrounded by hatred and trapped by fear. I'm in a box. I've got no place to go. If I follow my mind, I know I'll slaughter my own. Help me, I'm the prisoner. Won't you hear my plea? I need somebody, yeah, to listen to me. I beg you, brothers and sisters, I'm counting on you, yeah. Black babies in the womb, shackled and bound. Peace and love, family. Welcome again to the NEPPC show, the podcast. You know, whatever you choose to call it, you know, the whole idea is to bring an idea to the people, to the masses, from our own perspective. We have to control the narrative. Today's episode, we focus on September 9th of 1971. September 9th of 2023 is right around the corner, so we must commemorate that date and our liberation struggle, our struggle to express self-determination uninterrupted. And on September 9th, 1971, in Attica prison, prisoners had enough. They were not going to be treated the way that they were being treated for so long. They said enough is enough, and they decided to take action. So I'm with my brother, former political prisoner, Tariq Haskins, and we'll be discussing this important time period in our history. Brother, the floor is yours, brother.
Peace, family. I am Tariq. I am a Black Panther. I'm a former member of the Black Liberation Army. I spent 17 years in various American death camp prisons as a prisoner of war. I'm glad that we are here today remembering and honoring the Attica brothers, and we're doing a very good thing because the Attica brothers honored and championed the best qualities of humanity. So when we remember them, we are also honoring the best qualities of humanity. The Attica brothers honored courage over cowardice. This is what they stood up for. They stood up for the best qualities of humanity. They honored courage over cowardice. They honored intelligence over ignorance. And our brothers honored humanity over animals. As we recall, and when we read about the Attica situations, one of the statements that we're going to come across is what L.D. Barkley said. L.D. Barkley said that we are human beings, not animals, and we will not be treated like animals. And so by him saying that, he was saying that he honored all the best qualities in humanity. This is what they gave their lives for. They gave their eyes, their legs, their lungs for those qualities. And so when we honor them, we are also honoring and standing up for the best qualities of humanity.
Yes, that's very important that we understand that, because we all in this fight together. You know, we fighting because we want changes to occur, and changes don't occur on their own. Lessons must be learned, and those lessons are learned from examples of the past. So when we talk about an Attica uprising, we're talking about a very important lesson, because inmates, they were treated subhuman. They were given one roll of toilet paper to last them a month, and the prison population was overcrowded, and it was understaffed. So you can imagine the frustration and the hostility that was going on, and prisoners had enough. In August 21st of 1971, our beloved comrade George Jackson was murdered, and this really didn't sit well with prisoners, and people had enough. Prisoners had enough, and they decided that they was going to take action. And I think that this has to be understood, because these situations relate directly to one another, and we understand that people were getting politicized. Brothers were getting politicized inside prison, and they understood that they had to take a position. They understood concretely what was going on, because so many of them were being penalized for what they did. A lot of the crimes was crimes out of desperation, and while they're incarcerated, they began to evaluate the social conditions that led to their current situation. So this Attica uprising is pivotal in our study and our actions that we decide to take based on what's going on, based on the resources we have available to take particular actions. When we look at the abolitionist movement, they find their inspiration from the Attica uprisings, because their situation is examining the conditions of the prison system, right? And people understand that this system is this way for a particular reason, and it's not really changing society in terms of whether people are thinking about committing a crime or not. It's the problem of how society functions as a whole. Those who have the power to make change are not necessarily making change in the interests of working class people. And this reality is understood on a consistent basis, because you have another example after another example of somebody who's incarcerated and who winds up dead. Now, what's going on? Why is this happening so consistently? If the prison is supposed to be a place where people supposed to be safe at some level, right? Because we're supposed to be in a civilized society. They have enough money to spend on the prison system. Therefore, they should have the necessary equipment to make sure that people are safe, but yet and still. And then we look at Joy Powell's situation. She's organizing people where she's at, because they was dealing with an AC situation. They was dealing with bugs. And for the first time in 16 years, they actually had an exterminator where she's staying at. Well, where she's held captive at, I should put it. And, this, look how long this has to take. And I think that that's why it's very important that we have platforms like this, like the NEPPC podcast, that talks about political prisoners. We're talking about those who are incarcerated because of their position against an oppressive society, oppressive government. And I think that, that serves many of us in different places very well, because we're getting further ammunition on taking this task up, this task of making sure that our self-determination is uninterrupted. And I think that was important that we seen that in our community, because like I tell people before, brother, the platform is one thing, but then we get out in the community and we talk again about political prisoners. I'm in uniform when I'm out in the streets of Queensbridge. You'll see me with this hat. You'll see me with this shirt talking about Veronza Bauer's album and his contribution to mental health. And these are our heroes, and these are heroes that we need to advocate for. And just like brothers organized in the Attica uprising, we have to organize today in 2023. So one of the lessons is that when you have a situation going on and you're angry, you have to be organized. You have to have people who are disciplined, taking leadership. You have people who have experience. Their experience come on through their actions, right? Their credibility amongst people, and also by their intensity to do continuous research. And this needs to be done to produce an effective organization. What's your position, or what do you think about the way these brothers organized in the Attica uprising? What lessons can we learn from that, brother?
Well, I think that what the thing that we should learn most of all is that they stood up for the positive human qualities, and they were right. And that is why when the Attica situation jumped off, the authorities went to the media and ordered the media to tell the public that the Attica brothers had slashed the throats of numerous guards and had threw them out the window. And this is what the media was presenting to the public, to say that the Attica brothers were wrong and that they were insane. Now, we know today that the persons who was wrong is the white racist, white supremacist authority persons are wrong, and they are the insane ones. And I'm reminded of the Panther 21 case, where the Black people were rebelling in the form of the organized effort presented by the Black Panthers. They had the Panther 21 case where the authorities went to the media and told them that the Black Panthers intended to bomb botanical gardens, intended to bomb flowers, intended to bomb places where Black people shopped at. And the authorities were trying to tell the public that the Black Panthers were insane and that they were wrong. And now we know today, and we laugh at that now, and we know today that the persons who are wrong are the white supremacist authorities, and the persons who are insane are the government officials. And back during that day in Attica, we had a lot of persons who had not been raised in the South, who had not been raised on plantations, and who were not these type of tenant farmers raised on the plantations. Even back then in 30, 40, 50, and 60s, our people were still being raised on the plantation, and the white supremacists would walk through our houses and tell our people what to do with this boy here to make him suitable for living in an oppressive society. And so these brothers from in Attica, they had been raised in an urban environment, and they had not been subjected to that. And they were, at that time, were checking out what was going on in the world. They was checking out other prison situations, and they were seeing that the authorities, the white racist supremacists, were disrespecting and abusing prisoners in other prisons. And one of the persons who they had heard about and honored was George Jackson. He was the author of the book Solidarity Brother. And I think Blood in My Eye may not have came out at that time while he was at that time, but everyone knew that he was the author of Solidarity Brothers, and that he was a person who was rebelling against abusive treatment. And that's why when the authorities killed George Jackson, they inflicted a wound on the prisoners across the United States. And that really upsetted the prisoners, and that contributed greatly to the persons feeling that the authorities really had crossed the line by having done that, and they had done too much. Once they killed George, many prisoners were of the mindset that the authorities had gone too far in abusing the prisoners, and that contributed greatly. The fact that our brothers were raised in an urban setting and not on the plantation, and that they were being abused uniformly across the United States. And the brothers had done the research and had saw that was the case. And then they had killed Brother George, and that really sent them over. And as I said, the authorities went to the public, went to the media, told the media to tell the public that our rebellious brothers were wrong for and insane, when in fact the authorities were the ones who was wrong and who were insane. And as you say, Frank, one of the things, abusive things that they was doing, treating our brothers like animals, was giving out one roll of toilet paper per month And as we know, a roll of toilet paper may last a week. So that meant that for 3 weeks, our brothers had to go without toilet paper. And that is to treat persons like animals. And so our brothers had said that they had had enough of that, being treated like animals. Uh, so that's what contributed to uh, the Attica rebellion. And people should know that once people around the world had heard about it, in one incident I recall, the persons in the Virgin Islands had attacked John D. Rockefeller had ordered the killing of the 44 persons at Attica, and 11 of them was guards, and the other 33 were our brother prisoners. But John D. Rockefeller had ordered that, and people around the world, specifically in the Virgin Islands, they knew that this John D. Rockefeller, his brother had owned a hotel in the Virgin Islands, and they decided to attack that hotel, and they killed 8 people and wounded 14 people. So that our people around the world were felt offended also by the assault launched on the prisoners at Attica, and John D. Rockefeller ordered those prisoners killed. Those guards stood up on the wall with high power rifles and shot into that yard and killed those 30 some people. I know one brother was in a unit, so all the prisoners weren't killed on the yard. One brother was in a unit, and they had put after they had rounded up everybody and put certain troublemakers in a particular unit, and the guards came in there and killed everybody. And the brother survived. He was shot 6 or 7 times, but he survived. But all of these people were the principal rebels at the Attica situation. They had them in a particular unit, and the guards went down and shot every last one of them and killed everyone except this brother. He was shot about 7 times, but he lived. I had another friend who was there. He was shot 7 times also, a brother named Jomo Cleveland Davis, good brother, Black Panther. But that is what happened. The treatment of the prisoners led to the Attica rebellion, and the prisoners were operating the same way the authorities were operating with our indigenous brothers and sisters, and they were the authorities who were controlling our indigenous brothers and sisters in the residential schools. They were operating with the mindset. The objective was to kill the Indian and save the person. And in the prison situation, the guards and the administrators were operating with the mindset, kill the prisoners and save the person. And they intended to make our people into like automatons, just obey anything that a white supremacist tell them. And that is why they were subjecting them to the various abuses and indignities that our people were being subjected to. So, Frank?
Yeah, that's very interesting that you're saying. I appreciate that because you let us know about a personal experience that somebody had. Because prior to our discussion, I was doing some research, and a man was speaking about his experience, and he got real graphic. He was talking about they made him get naked. They was hitting him in his testicles. They was torturing him, and while he's talking, he's crying. He was traumatized by it. You had a number of men. These are strong Black men, and they were beat down. Just for their role, or just for being in a place where a change was taking place, and it was like those who gained back their position of power wanted those who were fighting back or standing up in resistance to be made known that this action of yours will not go on to inspire other people. Like, you're gonna go on and tell other people what happened to you. And while they're at their hearing, you have one of these people who I guess who works for the state. He's being asked if the N-word was being used, and he said he didn't hear it. And all the people who were tormented, who were tortured, they told about their account and told about how the N-word was used during their time of being tortured. And I think that we need to understand the seriousness of what happened with Attica uprising, because that made an improvement and how prisoners are being treated, because now you have a reference point. I always tell people, never underestimate the power of reference point. You begin to have courage. You are inspired to take action, because anything that we gain had not come to us without the sacrifices of others. So those who sacrifice at in Attica, they did it for us, and we can't forget them, right? We got to take a position. We got to
That's right.
what's going on currently, and we got to put ourselves in a position to fight back, to stand up, right? We don't want to do nothing crazy, nothing adventurous. We want to be calculated. We want to do things that's within our capacity to do. So I get very encouraged by looking at what our brothers did in Attica, because that had to be something that was happening for quite some time. Because I think with George Jackson was murdered, enough was enough. The situation had reached its boiling point, and those who respected George and understood that George was a man's man, George was a person who talked the talk and walked the walk, and they respected him at that level, that they needed to stand up and fight back, to show gratitude, show appreciation for the sacrifices and the commitment that George had. George was an organizer. He was a person that, as you said earlier, he wrote books, and he wrote books to raise the consciousness of those brothers and sisters who were incarcerated like he was. And if you look at the time during the Attica uprising, this was the time of the Black Panther Party. This was the time of the Young Lords. This was the time of serious resistance. So it was in the air. So it couldn't have been a more right time for them to do what they needed to do. And that's why it's very important that we have to call it what it is. It's an uprising, right? They want to say it's a riot, like if it didn't have no political basis, like if brothers didn't know what they were doing, that brothers were not organized and disciplined and focused and determined to get treated human. They understood that they were incarcerated. They were willing to do their time, but they wanted to do their time like human beings, not as animals or as subhuman, right? And I think that, when we study history, when we study our uprising, we got to study it from our perspective. We have to study it from telling our own story. Our oppressor cannot tell our own story, just like when we talk about U.S. held political prisoners, right? The United States government does not acknowledge political prison. They say that there's no political prison. They say that these people are terrorists, that they're criminals, and we got to control our narrative. And that's why this platform is focused on that. And that's why we're consistent with producing the episode every week, whether it's one person, 100 people, or 500 people that get to watch this episode. We know we have a job to do. And just like anyone who says they respect freedom fighters, if you're not doing the work, then how truthful is your respect? What responsibility do parents have in teaching about the Attica uprising, brother?
Oh, they have a big responsibility, man, to teach the children, man, and be proper parents, is to educate our people about our culture. That's a very important thing, and to deny the enemy the soldiers that he needs. Our parents got to not yell at our children. Don't yell at them, and don't beat them, and don't tell them everything what to do. These things have to be practiced, and that will and both parents have to love their children. And by both parents loving the children, that will deny them the enemy, the soldiers that they need. Because when you look into them today, the enemy, the white supremacist persons, you look into their family situation, you see that they were severely abused children for years, 15, 20 years, while they were growing up in their family situation. And those persons, especially in the ruling class, when it was determined that the children were not being abused, the parents would send them away to a boarding school where they can be abused and disrespected, and so that they can have the necessary hatred. These people are taught hatred. The necessary white supremacists are abused, and they come away with tons of hatred. And they are taught that way because they have to kill millions of people to maintain the capitalist system, and they have to let millions more people just die, just die. And the only kind of person can do that is a person who has been abused for 15 or 20 years in their family situation. And also, I want to end by saying that the Attica brothers, the sacrifices they made, it impacted the whole prison system. When I walked into prison in 1974, I walked in the mess hall, and up in top of the ceiling, around the ceiling, they had Nazi-like stuff. Work will set you free, all that Nazi stuff. And because the Attica brothers was an indication that a different kind of person was being made in America, that made the prison authorities, they lowered the ceiling to cover that Nazi stuff up. They took down the pictures. Everybody's hair got to be cut like this. Brothers with dreadlocks was staying in lockup for years, you know. And this thing of how you make your bed, they was telling you every little thing that you had to do, and you couldn't make no independent decisions at all. The Attica brothers, the lives they lost changed all of that for us, made it a little easier for us, you know, so that they didn't lose their lives in vain. People got to know that, you know, even though the authorities are continuing with their white supremacist attitudes and that sort of thing, because one of the reasons why the guards wanted to kill Tariq, mainly me, not because of what I'd done, because when the guard would say, "Good morning, Tariq," and I said, "Good morning, guard," he would run back to the other guards and say, "We got to kill Tariq because he think he's better than everybody else." I didn't know what they was talking about. What they was talking about, they were still making a lot of prisoners say, "Good morning, boss. Boss man, how you doing?" That old slavery talk. And that's why prisoners are denied parole. When they go to parole board, the parole people want to know one thing: are you a broke, submissive person, or you an independent, stand-up person? That's the question they want to know. If you go in there and say, "Good morning," and they ain't tell you to say that, they know you're not broke. You know, if you just say what you want to say, they know you're not broke. Parole denied. That's why them guys are being denied parole time after time after time. That's what's going on.
Yes, and it's funny that you use that word. Well, it's ironic that you use that word when you say they want you to be broke, because that was what George Jackson said. George Jackson said they will not count me broke amongst the broken, and that word and that war cry was heard throughout the prison population system, because those brothers were made known that you know, you should not be broke. Don't let nobody break you. You have to be strong. You have to stand on principle. You have to see the bigger picture. And I think the one way what a person really stays strong is understanding what he's up against or she's up against. You understand how they operate. You understand that it's an oppressive system, and it didn't start off this way in terms of the time that you're existing. It's been oppressive for many years, and there have been many people who stood up and fought back, and we have received gains because of people standing up and fighting back. We have received victories, victories, and we will continue to receive victories as long as we stand up and fight, as long as we are organized, as long as we are disciplined and focused. And that's why we have to give a Black Power salute to our brothers, our comrades who stood up in Attica uprising, those who made their transition, who are now ancestors on this at this very time of September 9th, 2023. We salute them, right? That's a few days from now, but we have to do it now because of the time that we have to have available. So with that being said, we want to encourage all those to please like, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let's continue to do this work to free our political prisoner, make time to write to a political prisoner. And you know what's the call?
Free them all.
You got any last words, brother? Or are we good?
Parents, you gotta love your children. That's how we're gonna deprive them of the soldiers that they need, by loving our children. Their families hate their children, and that's why they turn them out. And that's why them people will do anything to get paid, because they've been severely abused children, and they trying to say that they should not be disrespected like that by getting all this money, and that's not the way. Love is the way. Love your children. And our students, tell our students to look up every word, and that will put them brick by brick on the way to being a top student in the class.
All
Power
right.
to the people. Free our political prisoners.
Yeah, don't let them die in prison.
That's right.